Last week I pulled into a filling station here on the island to fill up my truck. There were 2 pump stations there, and I was at the rear one because another car was in the front one ahead of me. So I started to pump my gas and glanced up at this other car. And the car owner was an elderly woman, and as I watched, I noticed that she kind of seemed confused. So the gas was already sticking out of her tank, but she held a credit card in her hand and she was kind of waving it around in front of the screen. Then she'd peer really close to the screen, wave it again. I thought maybe she's trying to tap it, but it didn't seem like it. I didn't know what she was doing. And so it came to me, so why don't you go help her? So after a few more seconds of watching, I did. I said, okay, something's going on here. So I stepped a few steps toward her and said, can I help? And the elderly woman's response was immediate. Please, please. It only took a few seconds. Okay, so you've already filled the tank. Okay, here, put the card here. Do you want a receipt? Okay, here's the receipt. Take this. And as I closed the gas cap, she blurted out, "You're such a doll. You are just what I needed." And so as I drove off, we went our separate ways, but I was feeling pretty good with myself, kind of like this Boy Scout who'd done his good deed for the day. Sort of saying, that was what I was supposed to do. Good going. Now, I don't just tell this story to pump myself up. The gospel parable today, Jesus tells us of the poor widow and this dishonest judge. And I looked a little closer at that. I went into it a little bit. The Greek has for that, hokrites tes adikias. That doesn't mean the judge is dishonest in sort of like he's a thief or he's a liar, that kind of honesty. It really is literal translation would be the judge of righteousness. So the unrighteous judge. Or more commonly translated in most Bibles as the unjust judge. He's the unjust judge. So whenever I hear this parable, I look that up because I usually see myself in the role of the widow who's supposed to continue to persevere in prayer. And that's what Jesus says. Obviously, this is the main point of this parable because, again, Jesus points it out. But anytime you have a parable, you're always able to put yourself in prayer into different people, the different characters of the story. So I was thinking that this time, what if I would have put myself in the shoes of the unjust judge? What can we learn about that? If I say, let's pretend I'm that unjust judge. So we're not actually judges in a courtroom or anything, but we do make judgments all the time. We judge other people's needs, we judge their character, we judge their worth, we judge how we should react to them or enter into their lives or not, what should we do with them, all those things. And these judgments we make throughout the day are chances for us, like the judge in the parable, to show our fear of God and respect for other human beings or not. Again, we're called that all the time. Our decisions, choices, are they from the heart of Jesus, the just judge? So one of his titles is the judge. Or do we judge unjustly, like the fellow in the parable? And why does that matter? So such judgments and choices, they're not just matters of our own spiritual growth, although they are. But, and this is what I was thinking about today in terms of this parable and putting myself into his place, that often in life, God answers people's prayers by other people. The answer to our prayers is often another person or persons. And that means our acts of justice and charity towards other people are not necessarily completely or primarily our own work. There's something bigger behind our actions. There's a bigger story, there's a bigger force behind our actions. They are often the way that God intends to answer those people's prayers through us if we respond to the Spirit's promptings. You are an answer to my prayers. I don't know if that elderly woman prays, but on reflection I saw that whether she does or not, my actions that morning were more God's doing than mine. I needn't break my arm patting myself on the back. I was simply, at least that time, a just judge, that is prompted by God to answer the poor widow's prayers, and in a timely manner for once. pretty timely. Again, I was suggested, I said, I don't know. Okay, I guess I will. Again, God often uses us fallible human beings as his instruments to answer other people's prayers. We are the answer to their prayers, at least we're supposed to be. We're meant to be. So this follows from the doctrine of the communion of the saints. We profess that doctrine every Sunday in the Creed, the communion of saints. That simply means this complex web of grace and interpersonal relationships uniting us within the body of Christ challenges us to be these willing instruments of God's will and grace in one another's life. Again, we're connected, and God uses us. So notice, we call him the unjust judge. He doesn't actually do anything directly, actively to hurt the widow, in the sense he's not hitting her or etc. His fault is that he does nothing when he's morally obliged to act. That's the problem. His is a sin of omission. How many times have we not been the answer to prayer? We were sent to be an answer to this person's prayer, and we didn't. At that gas station, it wasn't simply that I could have failed to notice the woman's predicament, which certainly could have happened all the time. I don't notice. But even when I did see it, I could have, even I momentarily did think about not going to help. Why get in the way? She probably doesn't want any help. Why insert myself? Etc. How often do we, so to speak, leave the poor widow at the pump, repeating her prayers for help, whether she's articulating those or not? So every day what we can do is we can think of ourselves, I'm on assignment today. In the old English court system, and still today I think, there's circuit judges. So it's not that you went to the court, the judges would circulate around the country and you'd wait till they came to have your case heard. We're circuit judges. We're sent today to be God's agent, his judge, his instrument of his justice, his righteousness. I am to be docile, sensitive to his merciful and, again, his merciful will for others, his plans. So am I eager to be his hands, his tongue, extending charity, good counsel to others, to be God's answer to their prayers? That's what I'm meant to be about. That's why we get up in the morning. But what if we have no fear of God, like the unjust judge? And when I say fear of God, we don't acknowledge his lordship, that God is King of Kings, that he sent us out as his royal judges in the circuit. And what if we don't respect other members of Christ's body? We don't respect other human beings. That is a waste. And how sad for those people whom God sent me today to be an answer to their prayers if I don't respond. I leave them out calling for help because I am the unjust judge. So, life is dramatic. I guess that's right. When you get up in the morning, it's always dramatic. Things are happening. God's involved. Every day we're called and sent to be judged and to act in people's lives according to God's will. Sometimes in very small ways, helping an elderly woman at a gas station. It took about 20 seconds. Sometimes God sends us to be an answer to really big prayers that require real discernment and sacrifice on our part. But whatever God assigns us to do today, may we always hear and answer quickly and justly.